Galimera, Galispera, Galinicta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It's a new week, it's a blank canvas. Mayhem ensues when it comes to transfers. Stick around if you don't like transfers, because we are going to be picking our starting 11 as it stands today with the one and only Mr. Tom Canton. Let's rock and roll, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Hola, everyone. Welcome back to Squad Central. For those listening on replay, thanks for joining us too. We have in the house one of your favorites, one of my favorite humans, let alone football folks. Welcome back to Squad Central at Squaddies, Mr. Tom Canton.
How are we doing? We're good?
We are doing good. We're not doing too bad at all. How is your summer thus far, young man?
Hot. And I know that I'm speaking to someone in California right now, but yeah, I always get into this kind of like, I'll call it what it is, an argument with my own listeners on this topic, because I'll sit there at 8 o'clock in the morning with like the window closed because I don't want to keep it open because I'm going to wake the neighbors up if I do a show at 8 a.m. and it's boiling in my study, and I'm sitting there saying it's really hot this morning, and I get people leaving their comments saying, Tom, you know, I'm messaging him from like Uganda and it's like ridiculous temperature. Stop moaning about the temperature. And I'm like, look, I get it. But I will argue that you're used to that temperature. And in the UK, warm weather is just like, it's something we wish for. And then when it's here, all we do is moan about it. It's just part of being British.
It is fantastically, quintessentially British to be moaning about the cold in the winter. And then when the summer comes, it's just too much. You know what it is? It's just London, New York. They're just not built for the heat that way, right? They're just not. Like when you go to a big city, I love layering up when I come to England. I want to put, a few layers on. And if I want the sun, I've got it here in California, but then also you go to a nice spot in Europe, somewhere in the Caribbean, where it's meant to be. You do look like you're bronzed a little bit. I'm bronzed, but because of the lighting today.
But that was a few weeks ago. But it's just been sunny, very, very sunny. So I played golf the other week so that's 4 hours out in the sun. That was like a few days ago.
What'd you shoot?
Not my PB. I think it was about 8 over my PB. I don't need to give you the exact number because I'm still embarrassingly bad. So
look at him, PB, personal bests. Here we go. By the way, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know why, but I was thinking, I think of you often. But I was thinking, I called you Thomas the other day in a message I sent to you, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, Tom's probably like, my mum only ever used to call me Sophia when I was in trouble. But does anyone ever call you Tomo or Toms?
Oh, no.
No,
I don't like Tomo at all.
Yeah, it sounds thuggish.
Yeah. Tommy is also terrible. Thomas is when I'm in trouble.
All right.
Just Tom. Like, one of the worst things about having like a name where like you much prefer the shortened version is you accidentally use it on like loads of official forms. So then you have to kind of remember sometimes where you call yourself Tom, and then in a really official form where you have to put your proper name. So like for work, like all of my work stuff is Tom. Like, but like all the because I'm going through a process of potentially a house move. So it's like everything's Thomas now. So yeah.
I love it. When I fill out official forms, they want your middle name. And funnily enough, I'm the only child of the 3 that got a middle name. Maybe that's because it was the last one. And my dad realized he was never going to have an Andreas.
Yeah.
Because they called my brother after my grandfather, George. We have like 15 of them in the family. Yeah. And so he gave me his name as my middle name. I think he always wanted me to be a boy. He got close, Tom. He got close. Not close enough. Right. Good evening, squaddies. Please do listen to our chief like officer in the house, Tammy Steels. Hit the like button. Good evening, Melanie. Good evening, Hawkwind. Good evening. I love this. Cross Jonky. Carol's here. PW is here. Alison is here. Ian is here. The whole fam jam is here. Rich is here. Wonder where in the world Rich is. Probably back in Turkey. The urban ghost. Damn, Daniel. Welcome to the show. Ayushman is here. The whole fam jam's here. So let's just get stuck in, shall we? Super Tom. It's been a week. It's been a day. I watched your show, by the way. And, you know, I have this fella up.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's rumors, there are no rumors, there's confusion, if you'd like to call it, or just plain, you know what, we're just reporting what we know. And that's about it. I think I really enjoyed how you talked about patience. I did like the TED talk on journalism.
I do like a TED talk, to be fair.
That was pretty awesome. So what's going on with this? Maybe Mikel, maybe not. What's the latest? What do you know?
So,
Repeat it.
what I know or knew on Saturday when I reported it is that at the time of writing that article on Saturday, Arsenal had not made an official bid for Merino. When I spoke to a very reliable source, who is the same source who gave me the information that I broke on Saturday about Emile Smith Rowe's sell-on clause, which I was first to report on Saturday. And I say this as if I'm bragging because I don't tend to be the guy to break news. So when I do it, it's exciting. So that was great. And as I say, the source is the same person who is my source there and someone who I'm, you know, trust implicitly. And yeah, the information they gave was that, you know, things maybe are in kind of the public space a bit kind of more louder than what maybe the reality is right now. And that officially Arsenal from Saturday when I reported it, and then Kaya obviously did a piece on Sunday and reported something very similar from his source, who I also, you know is reliable, is that, you know, at this point in time, Arsenal hadn't made an official offer. Now, these stories don't mean that he's not going to join Arsenal. That I need to make that very explicitly clear. That's not what these stories are about. This is, you know, you as a journalist speaking to your sources because you know this is a player that Arsenal are being heavily linked with, so you want to get your angle, your words out there based upon your sources that you build up over the amount of time that you've been a journalist, XYZ. And Arsenal haven't made an official bid yet. That doesn't mean that talks haven't gone on behind the scenes. That doesn't mean Arsenal haven't been speaking to his representatives. That doesn't mean that unofficially things have gone on behind the scenes. And that doesn't mean that other sources that are different to mine or Kaya's or somebody else aren't saying different things to others. That isn't also true. What I find is that because there's obviously the news that we reported isn't like, here we go, to Nick Fab's phrase, he's signing, because it wasn't that, and it was slightly different, and it wasn't the most positive or uplifting news, you just get battered for it. Like, if you report something that's not the most positive in the world, but that is the reality that you've been told, you just end up getting battered. And I just think it's ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculous at the end of the day. I am still very optimistic about this deal. I really want him to sign. I think it'd be a really good deal for Arsenal to do. And if I was a betting man, I'd predict that I think it will eventually happen. All the right noises are coming from this, but there is, to my understanding, and what Kai's reported yesterday, I know to be true, is that, or 2 days ago, sorry, yesterday, it was Sunday yesterday, yeah, that there is kind of within Arsenal behind the scenes, it's not like everybody at Arsenal is 100% convinced this is the right midfielder to sign. So, and there has to be discussions, and there has to be eventually someone has to win out, and there's always going to be situations like that because there's a lot of people that are involved in these deals at Arsenal. You've got Arteta, you've got Edu, you've got Richard Garlick, you've got the people who are signing off on the money at the top, like your Cronkies, etc. You've got other people involved in it too, and these are all people with their own opinions and their own views and their own ideas about Arsenal. So the idea that they would always agree on every single player that Arsenal would ever go for is madness. So, of course, there's going to be discussions and people that need to be convinced or people that need to be convinced of not doing a deal. But from what the understanding is, it seems that Arteta is one of the big driving forces behind the deal for Moreno. And that's why I feel as though it has the legs to happen, because usually he's the type that would win out in this scenario.
I love how it's funny because I recorded a show, our new series, Showbiz Squad, which, by the way, Squaddies will go up this week. And we're talking about the process of making a film and how it could take years and years and years. And when it's time for the transfer window, this is the wackiest fans will get. I mean, they could be wacky during the season, depending on a result or a formation or who sits, who starts. But the summer transfer window definitely sends fans totally wacky.
Yeah.
And, had a really great opportunity to have, it was lovely to meet Tim Lewis on the ground in Los Angeles. And you said something very important there that I think fans need to understand. And this was something that Tim was kind of really proud of in terms of the fact that they truly have built a team at the Arsenal off the pitch.
Yeah.
And, not many clubs have that. I mean, Chelsea fans have had it so easy for so long. Now they're going through the pain that we have experienced badly, right? And this club is run by committee, not just by one person. And it doesn't happen overnight. Didn't he just come back from his holiday yesterday or something? Today. Right. So clearly he doesn't want to be talking about any of this while he's away. Might take the odd phone call, whatever. But yeah, I love the fact that, and do you feel that in a sense, Tom, that some fans still don't appreciate how we let it, yes, we've made some signings quick. We've let some marinate. We've done some lastminute.com stuff as well. But I think the way the club has handled the transfer market, incoming especially, since Benjamin White, Ramsdale and Tomiyasu window has grown and become like better and better. Would you agree with that? Do you not see that the fans don't see that?
I think that ultimately, fans are entitled to be selfish because they're not in charge of it. That's I often forget that side of it, and I go in very judgmental, and I can get into a fair few verbal or written scraps with Arsenal fans, talking about the latest transfer situation. But fans are entitled to their view, their opinion. I'm entitled to challenge them on it, and I don't hold back in doing so quite often. But I think the reality is that Arsenal's record is that we're in a situation where, if you look at the team of where it was when Arteta took over, if you look at that starting lineup, in fact, I did a thing. Let me see if I can find it again. The starting back four when Arsenal played against Bournemouth in 2019, which was Mikel Arteta's first game. The back four that day and goalkeeper was, ironically, Aaron Ramsdale was in goal that day for Bournemouth. Bernd Leno was in goal. Ainsley Maitland-Niles was right back. Sokratis was right-sided centre-half. David Luiz was left centre-half. And Bukayo Saka was left-back. So that was the back four for Arteta's first game. And on the bench, his options to come off it were Mustafi and Mavropanos. They were the other two defenders that we had to come off the bench in that scenario.
Craziness.
So when that, in the space of, 5 summer windows, has become Raya and Ramsdale, White, Timber, Tomiyasu, Gabriel, Saliba, Kivior, Zinchenko, Calafiori, that is in just the defensive area we're talking about here, is an incredible show of progression and strategic acquisition of players. And then, of course, you look at Saliba being in that group, who at the start, if you remember way back when, Arteta used to get battered for his supposed treatment of Saliba. He couldn't have perfected the way in which he integrated Saliba to any more of a T than he did. They were right about how they sent him on loan. They gave him some tough love at the start. Yes, maybe we could have treated him slightly better with the whole under 18 scenario or under 21 scenario, sure. But when you look at the progression that he's made, and you look how Arteta is as what I would describe as a very astute defensive coach in terms of how he improves defenders, he has unleashed that potential from Saliba, and it's become one of the best. But also, he's turned Gabriel, who was his first real investment as a manager. Gabriel's the real first investment we made at the start of his tenure in that 2020 summer window, and has turned him into a player that can actually be rivaling Saliba in terms of appreciation from supporters too. And when you look at the midfield as well, Ødegaard's become one of the best attacking midfielders in the world, categorically a world-class player. we've obviously been able to then compete and beat Manchester City to a guy like Declan Rice in the market and convince him that Arsenal is the place to go, not City. He's got the best from Bukayo Saka and turned him into the player that he is today. And he's managed to turn a team where there's still question marks about the striker situation, about our goal scorers, but he's taken that team and turned them into a side that have scored more Premier League goals, not just the Invincibles, but more Premier League goals than any other iteration of an Arsenal side. And last season get a better win percentage across all competitions, not just in the Premier League era, in the entire history of Arsenal Football Club. So that's the recruitment model, and that's the evidence that by this point, if you're not convinced by what Arsenal are doing, I don't know what more they can do but win the league. And by that point, if that's when you're jumping on the bandwagon, you're a bit late.
And one thing I said to the squaddies when I did the recap of LA is, if you think that this team, these executives, the folks in charge, the powers that be that really have success, that we would, love and appreciate in their hands, don't want to win so badly. And, you think you want to win badly as fans. They want to win so badly. And there's no doubt that the owners have gotten behind Mikel. And like you said, some of the improvement on the players has been really quite brilliant. And there was a time where there were a lot of question marks as to whether or not Mikel Arteta could coach up. And I think it's obvious that he has. So Mikel Merino, still possible, still, and I'm sorry that you guys have to face all of that stuff. And a lot of the times people talk nonsense, and we won't tolerate that in our chat. That's for sure. And if you guys, sometimes when things like that happen, I say, you start a channel or you write about it and see how that goes for you.
It's not even that as well. It's like, I host phone-in shows on the channel all the time. I welcome other people who are willing to challenge the points. Do they ever show up? Do they? You know what? They never do. So they can sit in there, they can sit behind the keyboard all they want for all I care.
Oh, goodness. Better late than never, Newman. Good to see you. And yeah, he's in the house. Okay, so Mikel Merino, that's that. So let's talk about this, by the way. Yes. I want to explain my graphic here a little bit to everybody, because at first it's tears. Okay. And I shared this video. If you haven't seen it, it was really sad because now I'm thinking this was the last time I saw Emile. Hold on one second. Sorry, I had a call coming.
He doesn't know what to do. Well played, Reece. Well done, Reece. Oh, yeah, Emile. Good luck in the future.
It's like, well played. And see you, Emile.
Twice. There you
go. Just because. Sorry, I had some correspondence coming in on the same laptop. And, a lot. Magic Mike said, he goes, oh, it looks like you just, you sound like you just want to give him a hug. And I did. And when you look at this at first, it's like, it's sad because you love your Highlanders, you love the young players, you want to see them succeed. I explained on the show, and also when I was on Sky Sports, you want everyone to be a Saka. Not everyone is a Saka. And at some point, you've got to cut the umbilical cord. And then, it turned to a smile for me, Tom, because firstly, I want him to be happy. We all want him to play football. He deserves it. Think he will shine at Fulham. Someone put in chat, and I don't know if this is true, but I don't know if he's playing today and he scored a goal. I don't know if that's true or if he's,
he scored,
He scored. So they were like, cue the meltdown, the argument with Fabio Vieira and all of that jazz. But the truth is that he wasn't the same player, and moving on's okay. So my tears turned to joy for him, and mostly the joy, at the end of the day, I'm an Arsenal fan, was the fee, which I don't think he's getting enough credit. I don't think the club is getting a pat on the back for this. Do you agree or disagree with that one, Todd, when you consider that he's hardly played any football? And I know you mentioned Conor Gallagher, and I mentioned Conor Gallagher too, who went to the Euros with England. I think massive credit here for the fee.
Absolutely. Just by the way, if you keep seeing me go like this, it's because the biggest spider just crawled across the windowsill, and I'm just like, stay there, please, and let me deal with you afterwards. I was just like so distracted by this giant spider crawling across the windowsill. But yes, the Emile Smith Rowe fee, I mean, Gallagher's going to Atletico Madrid for £33 million. he played, as I personally think, Chelsea's second best player last season behind Cole Palmer. And Arsenal are getting a fee £1 million higher than for a player that played around 600 minutes across 2 campaigns for Arsenal. And not only that, but as I humbly mentioned earlier, that we've got a sell-on clause in this deal that is higher than 10%. So let's hypothetically say, he goes for, 40 million quid in the future. I'm going to make this math really difficult for myself now. But let's hypothetically say he goes for 40 million quid in the future, and we've got just a 10%, you get 4 million quid. If it's 15%, you're getting 6 million quid, which obviously would take the fee up to 40 million in total. So it's a very good deal. And it also kind of, I'm sure we'll come on to Nketiah perhaps in a bit, but it is a really good example again of Arsenal holding out for what they want from a player in terms of valuation and getting it. And it gives them that incentive to continue to hold firm on valuations of players, because it has been one of the biggest criticisms of Edu that he is not a good enough salesman and that we aren't good enough at getting the big fees for players. That needed to change this summer, and that is changing this summer. And you can see it by not just Smith Rowe, but other deals that have happened and are hopefully going to happen as well.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's dig into this a little bit. By the way, I found this. It's the worst AI rendering I think I've ever seen. I believe it might even be a couple years old, but I found it on Reddit Gunners, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to show it anyway, because he actually looks like, at first I thought, oh, did Edu become a polo player? It looks like he's playing polo. Now's a good time to not kill the spider, Tom, save it, put it on a piece of paper.
I can't. It's like I've got soundproofing all around room, so like there's like the little diagonal slots, and it's like hiding in one of the little in one of the slots. I'm just trying to film it so I can send it to G.
I love it. So
me.
Edu is, and by the way, he wasn't very visible. I don't even know if he was in America at all, Tom. I didn't see him not once on the tour in the United States. And so
he was at the start, and then he went back.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Eddie, and I think, the toughness. Talk to me about that, but also what else does Edu have cooking in terms of spend, stick, and sell?
So obviously, Arsenal's situation is that it's kind of a bit of a one in, one out in some ways, because we're desperate for money. There is obviously a consciousness surrounding the profit and sustainability regulations that Arsenal want to make sure that they're complying with. And at the moment, certainly, I wouldn't expect Arsenal to go and do an 80 million plus deal or a Declan Rice type deal at the moment, unless there's some significant movement out the door between now and the end of the market, which could happen if I get big money for Nketiah, and then Reece Nelson maybe is sold, and then Ramsdale potentially brings in big money too. All of those things could combine to help Arsenal do business. But I think what we're most likely to see is that a central midfielder will come in, Moreno being, of course, the most likely candidate at the moment. And then a forward is the other area that Arsenal will want. And I think the forward market is certainly due to kick off, but like from now, really. I mean, we're starting to see forwards move. Fulkrug signed for West Ham. Julian Alvarez is being heavily linked with a move from City to Atletico Madrid. Chelsea, I think, are moving for a young guy at Atleti as well. I think that's part of kind of the domino process there as well. So yeah, there's lots to be expected. But I would think that if Arsenal go for a forward, it will probably be a winger rather than a centre forward. And that's because of the market. That's because of the players that are available. That's because Arsenal, of course, desperately need to bring in competition for Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side. But yeah, if I was trying to predict what might happen in the forward line, which is the most unknown category at the moment for Arsenal, and no one really knows what's going on in that area, I would lean more towards a wide player.
And that wide player would be primarily to cover for Saka.
Yes.
Because we've talked about Reece Nelson and the unknowns. There's a lot of questions. Demsex put one up about Eddie. Mark asking as well, would there be more leverage to sell Eddie if his salary wasn't as high? There's the talk of maybe Waneri having more of an impact. He's a bit versatile in that kind of a final third, Tom, as well. Is he going to get his chance? what do you think is the most realistic? I mean, I'm not asking you to look into a crystal ball, if you like, which isn't very fair. But the one complaint from fans, which I thought was very valid, is we can't burn Saka out. Is Jesus going to be the guy to back up Saka? Is he actually going to start? And we'll get to that a little bit later. But Waneri, does he get a chance if we bring someone in? Does that mean he goes on loan? What does your kind of crystal football tell you in terms of what they might be thinking?
Yeah, for me, Nelson, and we talked about this, I think you came onto my channel, is that I thought Nelson had been probably the most impressive of the preseason performers across the 3 games in general. And if there was one player that I thought that could potentially, change the view and the perspective of him, it was Nelson. I don't think Nketiah's got a hope of changing fan opinion at all on him. I think the jury is not out. The jury has kind of decided on him. So with Nelson, I think that he's still going to struggle to get enough minutes to justify keeping him. And that's his biggest issue. So the best thing for him to do is to move on. For us to get a decent figure, I hope around 15 million plus would be great. For Nelson, would be fantastic after a year of, previously thinking that he would go for nothing to now thinking that we might be able to keep him. Sorry, now might be able to sell him for a significant fee is a really good bit of business by Arsenal. So, but the problem is that West Ham have now signed Somerville, so they're not really in the market for a wide player. Leicester have been a bit put off, I think, by the monetary side of the Nelson deal, so it might be a late one for somebody else. But yeah, Nketiah, Arsenal are absolutely right to stay firm on this valuation that they've got, because you can't at one point criticize Edu and the club for not selling well enough, and then when they have a valuation for a player, moan at them for not accepting a lower bid. That has to change. We have to change the rhetoric. And I wrote a piece the other day about this, saying that we might lose out on a big amount of money for Nketiah this summer, but the longer term implications of Arsenal standing firm on the valuation is more important than the money that we might get for him.
Yeah, totally agree with that. What about what's real?
I've lost him.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I've lost. Oh, no, he's in the corner. He's in the corner.
I
was going to get him. That's why I literally just drunk the rest of my water thinking, can I?
This is better than any reality TV show, ladies and gentlemen. Now here we are in the wild with Tom Canton.
TGT studio has been invaded. Shall I try and get him live on?
Let's try and get the spider, but don't kill him because we don't want to do that. I will stop talking like this eventually. Thomas going into
I got him.
situation. Oh, look at him! Oh, the boy.
Hold on. Is it showing it?
Turn it like down towards the mic. Yes.
It's not really in focus. He's big.
A big boy.
Yeah.
What?
There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Right, that's going to stay there for the rest of the podcast. There you go.
You've got it cupped properly, right?
It's cupped. He is not going anywhere. No, he's staying right there.
We're talking about big boy cupped. I think we'll just go back to transfers. This is live podcasting at its best. You're absolutely right. Ladies and gentlemen, the new Spider-Man incoming. The Spideyverse just got a new superhero. Yeah, he wasn't joking when he said it was a big spider.
I don't know what Ramsey. I think it was Ramsey saying. I thought it was going to be a big spider. It's a big spider.
Tom Dundee, Struth, mate. Well done, Tom. Well done. Where were we? This is much more exciting. Should we talk about spiders?
Yeah,
Speaking of spiders, he has been a bit of a Spider-Man for us. There was a time where he came in and he did a good job when Jesus was injured in his first season. Just hasn't really hit the ground running. And yeah, I think we should be stubborn when it comes to him.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to change the perspective that clubs have got of us as a selling, as a selling club. We're not a selling club, but it's big. I mean, look at Man City might be able to just get, after 2 seasons having paid 50 million quid for Julian Alvarez, looks like they might get 70 million quid, which is huge.
Is it true that the spider's going to suffocate in there? Damn. Thanks, JJ.
I've just tipped the glass to allow some new air in. How did they breathe? They must breathe through their exoskeleton, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Don't know, but this
That's not what
show
I'm
is
here
just
for.
epic. All right, let's get on to real quick. Gyökeres, Alvarez. I'm a poet and I know it. Can I find another striker we're attached to rhyme with? No. Solanke, Tony, all of those things, those players that we've been linked to, are they all nonsense or could one of them be real? And who am I missing? I'm missing Osimhen lately,
Osimhen as
apparently.
well, yeah. And obviously Šeško at the beginning of the window, which since, of course, he then decided to stay at Leipzig, which, to be fair, I don't blame him for. I think it's probably the best move for his career is to spend another year at Leipzig. But the Arsenal have sensed. I've watched Gyökeres a lot. They've scouted him a lot. They've looked at him as a potential option, loads. But they've never really advanced with that interest. It's never turned into anything more formal than just interest. And that's because obviously Sporting are right to demand that 84 million pound release clause that he's got, a 100 million euro release clause. And it's a huge gamble to take on a player that ultimately has had one brilliant season, but he's not like an early 20s player. He's a player that's burgeoning on the prime years of his career now. And to spend that amount of money on a player who's just had that one season, it's really tricky. It's really tricky to kind of just commit to that. Osimhen doesn't personally convince me. I know that a lot of fans are liking of him and they would very much happily welcome him to the fold. I don't think there's enough there to convince me that you spend the 100 million odd that it would take to get him through the door. Tony isn't good enough, just bottom line. Solanke I like, but again, I'm not sure that's the level of striker I want Arsenal to go and spend big on, and it would take big money to get him. And so I just think that Arsenal will wait. They probably will assess Šeško for another year, see how he spends this season at Leipzig. I think the new deal, to my understanding, does have another release clause in it, so it's not like they need to negotiate with Leipzig again. So yeah, I think that this is it's still going to be a good thing for Arsenal to be, to be patient. I'm never a fan of signing a player for the sake of signing a player. And again, this is an Arsenal team that scored plenty last season, and I think we can add another winger, and that would do more to improve our competence up top.
So that's kind of my angle. I said this, and I'm sure with some it's not a popular opinion, but for me, I'd be stoked if we started the season with Kai playing in that forward role. He was one of our best players from January to the end of the season. I think that this could be his best season yet. My little Sostradamus gut tells me that. Same thing when it comes to Gabriel Jesus. And when you do break all those records, I think the narrative needs to change in that we scored so many goals. That's not the reason why we didn't win the league. We missed chances when we should have buried them. And Trossard, who's been a brilliant finisher, and I know you think he's our best finisher clinically at the club, this happens. And a lot of the times I equate it to forward players get away with misses. The same, defenders get crucified for making mistakes. I mean, look what's happened to Zinchenko. Look what happened to Aaron Ramsdale in goal. It's so much more glaring. So if we can be more clinical in front of goal, maybe we're a miss away against Aston Villa and that's 3 points and the game is totally different. It was Trossard that missed that opportunity, wasn't it? Yeah. So I think the argument should be built around that versus we need a striker. When you break that kind of record, I just think I think you do kind of think smarter and try to invest the money elsewhere. I'm sure many people are going to disagree with me. And of course, I agree, a prolific goal scorer. Not everyone's a Haaland either. Ollie Watkins, is he going to have the same kind of season he did last season? Let's see if he can do it consistently every single season. It's hard to do what Haaland's doing. It's not easy. Not everyone's a Harry Kane, so it's not going to be the end of the world for me if we walk away from this window without a striker. Okay, before we get to our next segment with Tom, Newman gives us this report. Assuming that your cup is of the size of the unit of volume of the same name, a cup, a small calculation shows that there will be enough oxygen for the spider to survive for over 98 days.
He's fine then. He's chill.
He's chill.
He's chilling in that glass. He's fine.
We finally found something for Newman to do, which is amazing. Right. The next segment of the show, and everyone gets stuck in here based on what we know now this is. So what I did was I asked Super Tom to put his starting 11 together for me. Now, there may be no shockers here for you. You guys may think differently. So we're going to kick it off with the back line, of course. Tom, are you spotting you're looking over your shoulder like you don't trust that there's not another spider there.
I can't help it now. I've got, you know, when you feel like they're on you. Is it on me? It feels like it's on me.
That itch. Tom, talk me through this. This is your back line.
Yeah.
Starting the season if it started today.
Yeah, well, if Timber's fit as well, which is a question mark because he's not been spotted in training. He missed the game against Liverpool as well. So, yeah, we're not 100% sure. If it's not him, it would probably be Kivior at the moment because obviously I'd love it to be Calafiori, but we need to get him fit first. He's only just come back. Of course, he's not played any pre-season matches so far. And I would expect that Calafiori and Timber will be vying it out very much for that left-hand slot. But the rest of the team, for me, picks itself. Raya Saliba, Gabriel White is going to be the 4 of the 5. And that left side slot will be between Timber and Calafiori, with Timber, of course, also trying to push Ben White as well to a degree. But I'm excited for Calafiori, and I'm interested to see how he's used at the start, because we've seen before that Timber came in as a fullback, but we signed him having played the entire season for Ajax as a centre-half. So there was an expectation that he was coming in to be kind of support for Saliba, but actually, no, he was starting to play games at left-back, which was a real surprise. So sometimes Arteta surprises you where he uses new players and how he uses new players. And so I'm kind of chilling on the Calafiori situation just to see what happens. But if Timber is fully fit, which there was a hope that he would be, but of course we'll see on Wednesday if he's in the squad or involved in the game against Bayer Leverkusen, how ready he is for the season. We've still got just over a week till the new season starts. But that would be my back four to kick things off.
Rancid, I too love that picture of Big Gabby. It's my one of my favorite ones of last season. And Chemo FC, give him a follow, redid it with the Know Your Place.
2 seasons ago.
Yeah, 2 seasons ago. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. The Timber thing, is this post tour? Because he did play he played.
Yeah.
Is this post tour? This isn't going back to.
He didn't play against Liverpool, and the suggestions at the time, what people were briefed is that it was just kind of managing his fitness. But the fact that he's not been spotted in training, it's not to say he wasn't there. You know, sometimes Arsenal are very tactical with the pictures and footage they release. So it's not, it's not definitive, but it is, a little worrying, that he's not there. I just hope that he's all right. And, obviously Arteta will face the media. There's no pre-match press conference before this game on Wednesday, but there will be a post-match press conference. So if Timber's not in a squad, not in a team, he will surely be asked about that.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, everybody. Okay. Batten down the hatches. It's the midfield.
Yeah, I haven't been very impressed by Thomas Partey's form at all in the summer. Jorginho, I think, is the better option right now to play with Declan Rice, who I imagine will be fit and ready to go for the start of the season after playing, you'd think some minutes on Wednesday and then probably from the start against Lyon on Sunday. And yeah, I just think that's the best midfield we've got at the moment until Merino arrives, if indeed he does arrive. And I think that he would then, it's definitely possible that he comes into that starting 11 too, and Rice then moves back into that number 6 role. But yeah, I think that Jorginho, Rice and Odegaard is the best 3.
I completely agree with you. I'm a massive Jorginho fan. Loved the signing from the get-go. I love his personality, his character. He's just one of those cool guys. Yeah. And,
he loves a joke as well. But every time I've spoken to him after a game, he's always usually swearing. And there's always a bit of the audio I have to just trim out. But he's absolutely top guy.
I love that. And you can tell how much the club trust him. He came out to speak to the media, Sky Sports, after the Manchester United game. He's just so seasoned. And in the dressing room, that is massively important. And I love this picture. He did that photo shoot for the Times. You can check Robert J. Wilson's pictures, but I love that photo so much. Had to use it. Okay, here's where things get a little tasty, because we do have choices right? And let's be honest, last season was great for some and not for others. Who has Tom selected in his attack? Let us know if you agree or disagree. And remember to share your 11 in the comments section as well. Thomas, because they're wearing a bow tie, so I had to make it a little bit formal. Although Saka is sporting his tie. He's on a throne there. Chemo FC gave him a throne. Once I picked that picture, I'm like, well, I've got to find a couple of the other two looking like James Bond. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I think this is our best front three. Trossard worked his way into the team at the end of last season because Martinelli's form did dip off. However, I think Martinelli's come back looking somewhat back to his best. And I've really enjoyed seeing his contributions. He looks direct, he looks energized, he looks refreshed. And I really liked his performance against Liverpool. I think that Havertz, despite playing a really good midfield display actually against Liverpool and obviously getting that goal as well, his best role and his best position is at centre forwards. And the thing with Jesus, I think Jesus is going to be an important player for us this season, but Havertz has earned that centre forward starting spot, and I look forward to seeing him begin a campaign as our centre forward rather than obviously beginning the campaign as a midfielder. And you know, he scored 13 Premier League goals last year, playing 2/3 of the campaign in midfield. Give him a whole season there. There's no reason why he couldn't get 20 plus. So let's see what he does.
So I thought that he looked one of the brightest and hungriest. Two players looked, I thought the youngsters, as you know, we talked about it, looked super hungry and took their opportunity. I thought they were all wonderful, barring Rekic, which we talked about.
Yeah.
I felt that Martinelli and Jesus looked like they were, I don't know, just being released from, you know, being in a confined space for a very, very long time and just being let loose. And Martinelli especially also looked like in good spirits. I mean, he was, you know, reunited with Fabio Vieira, so he's probably really happy about that anyway. And, you know, Steve Nick always said to us on this show that when those two are fit, Saka and Martinelli, they'll scare the bejesus out of anybody. And when he looks for the Arsenal-Liverpool lineup, he always feels better about a game if Martinelli or Saka aren't starting. This is a really big season for Martinelli. Trossard, I agree with someone who said it, and I've said it on the show before. Someone just said it in chat too. To me, he feels mostly like a super sub. Or not to start every game, but to come in and maybe play 3 or 4 games in a row sub. There's something about that flow. And I don't know if you have these stats at all, but like his flow of his goal scoring, does it happen all the time when he starts, where if he comes off the subs bench? That's kind of how I felt about him a little last season. I always felt like he was like the super sub, the ace in the hole.
Yeah, I think that the dynamic between Martinelli and Trossard is really interesting. I see Martinelli as the starter in Arsenal's best 11 when everyone's on their best form. Trossard has produced a very, very good performances off the bench. He's been one of the few players, I think, for Arsenal that genuinely does come off the bench and provide us with something in games. But we have a really good record when he starts as well, a really good win record. He also scores really important goals. You know, think about the goal he scored against Porto, think about the goal he scored against Bayern Munich, think about the goal he scored against Liverpool, at Chelsea, you know, when he came off the bench in that game. But he probably owns the biggest miss of the season in that game against Aston Villa as well. But I still think of him as our most clinical player when he's on the field. But that perhaps leans into having someone like that as a superstar, because you do have less time on the field, you do get less chances. So you want maybe that person to be very clinical when come off the bench. And you know, there's a stigma around Trossard when he starts games that isn't necessarily accurate, but there's some truth to it. But I think Martinelli had a really disappointing season last year and comes back with a real fire behind him to solidify his place again in this team.
Totally. And before I let you go, by the way, we're going to do this. I'm going to get predictions from everybody, from some of your favorite YouTubers and podcasters, and we're going to share that with you before the season starts. Tom, what I asked you about your subs too. And off the top of your head, if that's your starting 11, I'm curious to know if Nwaneri makes the subs bench for you in particular. But what does your bench look like?
Yeah, without a doubt, Nwaneri's there.
Is it? Do
And
you pronounce it with the N? I've been told no.
I go with the N, but I'm not the person to go to for pronunciations.
You're my guy.
Notorious. I try sometimes, but go on.
You taught me Jokeres.
Yeah, that's because someone else taught me. So, but yeah,
who's your 5?
Nwaneri or Nwaneri. I'm sure maybe I'll get to speak to him this season and he can tell me. But I think that he has got to get those minutes from the bench at the start of the season, coming off it for 5, 10, 15, 20, start the cup games, get some starts, maybe even in the Premier League against some of the relegation battlers as well. You can swap Ødegaard out if you need to, say, rest him ahead of a Champions League game that was really important. Give Nwaneri that chance. I really think that he does. I think obviously other parts of the bench will be Partey will be there. Zinchenko will be there for coming on in games where we're more dominant and we need to maybe grab a goal. And Kivy will be on that bench to help us from the bench at times where we need to be more a little bit solid at the back, go to a back 5 potentially. Timber and White and, of course, Calafiori are going to share, I think, minutes at right and left back. Obviously, White on the right-hand side, Calafiori on the left-hand side, but Timber will be dovetailing, I think, between the two. And Ramsdale, there's no interests. There's nothing happening at the moment. That might change come the end of the window, but if this stays as it is, he will be Arsenal's number 2. Arsenal aren't going to sign a goalkeeper until he goes. So at the moment, there just simply isn't indications that is going to happen.
All right, good stuff from Tom. This is his defense, as we know today. And here's his midfield. Let us know what you think. And here is his attack. And there's a reason why Calafiori was bought. Remember, we have these conversations all the time. We didn't spend that much money on them to just be sitting on the bench. Well, who knows what's going to happen with Timber and where the Italian will kind of, and where he will start and when. Maybe Mikel, maybe not. Keep posted on Tom's morning shows, 8 a.m. every single morning. Coming up this week as well on Highbury Squad. I think Tom will appreciate this one. He wasn't too sure. The first one was Lee Judges, but our podcaster of the week coming up on Thursday at 8 p.m.
This is a huge step up. Massive. This is a humongous step up in guests.
Harry will be on. And look out for a pre-recorded show I've done. What does it mean to be a fan? I did this about a week ago, and I'll be sharing it on the channel this coming week. And I think it'll be useful, and hopefully you'll enjoy it ahead of the new season. I hope that we all stick together as fans of this season, back the team and all of that stuff. Tom, other than 8 a.m., what else are you doing?
I was going to ask who took that picture. Because of you. Who took that picture?
Let's see. Wasn't Vinny, wasn't Vespa.
Well, I'd be surprised if they can take photos. That'd be very impressive.
It might be a selfie. I don't know. I wouldn't do that. I think it's Tony. Yeah, I don't like selfies.
I don't know if Mike had managed to get one of you when he came over.
Is it a good or bad shot?
I reckon it's got aura. I think that's the word they use. Got aura.
Oh, yeah. I like that. I like that very much. I'll bring Vinny out just for Suraj as well, because he misses him. And of course, remember as well, we got Vespa in the house. Please hit the like button. It helps the channel. And thanks for that. I'm not very good at this, thumbnail, put yourself on a photo thing. But
I don't do that. Yeah.
Apparently it helps the channel. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm nowhere to see. Potsy's got more pictures of me on my thumbnails than I do.
he's
and
great.
As well.
Absolutely. All right. You remember you can follow Tom here. Tune in tomorrow 8 a.m. He's up every morning. How's the spider? Everyone, we have to know before you go.
He's fine. He's chilling. I assume it's a he. I'm being really sexist. It could be a she. Don't know. I'm not going to get close enough to find out. So they will be released very friendly into the wild after the conclusion of the episode. So yeah, okay. Thank you for having me, and thank you to the chat box for the kind words as always.
Thanks for having me. I only went 9 minutes over, which is Olympic football and World Cup football time. Until next time, squaddies, I will see you soon at ease. And remember the rules. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. Kali nikta.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
I'm so hot.